Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the University of New Brunswick celebration of Canadian spirit. Let me introduce you to your hosts for this evening, two of UNB's most distinguished alumni. Former Premier of New Brunswick, former Canadian Ambassador to the United States, and now the Deputy Chair of TD Bank Financial Group, and internationally renowned songstress and a true Canadian icon, please welcome Frank McKenna and Anne Murray.
A little bit of soap will wash away your lipstick on my face. A little bit of soap will never erase the paint.
So,
Did
Anne?
you hear that?
Yeah. What's that all about, that song?
Well, that was my very first recording. That was recorded at Red and Black Review.
Okay. A lot of drinking going on at the Red and Black Review.
In 1965, my very first recording at the Playhouse in Fredericton, yeah. And if you have a discerning ear, and I'm certain you do,
Yeah.
you would have noticed that I had tonsils.
Oh.
You can hear it's so nasal, that recording. But shortly...
Too much information.
But shortly thereafter, I had my tonsils removed, and I haven't looked back.
Well, good for
As
you.
you know. And you've had a very interesting career since you left UNB, too.
Well, it was interesting. It was a wonderful day for me the day I started law school at UNB. Spectacular class and a wonderful law school. But my mother often said it was the saddest day of her life because she wanted me to be a farmer, and I ended up becoming a lawyer. Anyway, things got worse when I became a politician, you can just imagine. Thankfully, she's not alive now to know I'm a banker.
Well, I guess we should get down to
Well, we
business.
should welcome everybody.
Oh, yes,
yeah,
welcome.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you for being here. Now for this evening's program, a celebration of Canadian spirit, a fitting way for UNB, Canada's oldest English-speaking English language university, to celebrate its 225th anniversary.
And so before we go any further, I'm going to interrupt just for a moment for a bit of a commercial. I'm asking for people's vote. And this has nothing to do with the New Brunswick election, I assure you. But something that's kind of near and dear to Anne and I is the Bay of Fundy. And 441 sites around the world have been considered in a contest to decide what are the 7 wonders of the world going to be. And that list has now been winnowed down until it's shortlisted. There are only 28 sites left. There's only 1 site left in Canada, and that's the Bay of Fundy. And there's only 2 sites in North America, and the other one, of course, is the Grand Canyon. And the Bay of Fundy, of course, is just like the Grand Canyon, only it's full of water.
Yes, exactly.
Water and whales and lobster and great things. So this is a real contest that's going to be very meaningful to us in Atlantic Canada and all across Canada if we can win. So when the time comes to vote, vote early and vote often.
Attaboy.
Now, tonight, UNB will recognize 5 outstanding Canadians for their personal accomplishments and contributions to society. Each will receive an honorary degree, which is the highest honor an academic institution can bestow. And each will speak on a national issue of personal importance. You're also going to hear about UNB. After all, we've got a captive audience right here in, as we call it, Toronto. We're also going to have a wonderful time greeting our platform party. Very, very distinguished group. It includes tonight's honorees, government representatives, members of the University's Board of Governors, and over 40 UNB honorary degree recipients who have come from as far away as Seattle and Portugal. Please rise for the procession of the platform party.
Ladies and gentlemen, your platform. Guests. And Fin Noir String Quartet. Please be seated. It's now my pleasure to introduce one of UNB's most accomplished alumni and one of its greatest supporters, Chancellor Richard Currie. Dr. Currie is an internationally celebrated business leader whose counsel and contributions are transforming the university. He established UNB's largest and most prestigious undergraduate scholarships and is the lead donor to the new Richard J. Currie Center, a magnificent athletic, wellness, and ceremonial facility. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Richard Currie.
Well, thank you, Anne, and I will pray for your soul for being such a flatterer, if you will pray for mine for enjoying it so much. Tonight we celebrate the spirit that defines our nation: tenacity, purpose, courage, and heart. It's a spirit embodied by the University of New Brunswick, Canada's oldest English language university, and one of the oldest public universities in North America. Some would say the oldest. It's a spirit embodied by the 5 individuals we honor tonight. And on behalf of the university, I want to welcome Carolyn Acker, Purdy Crawford, Phil Fontaine, Clara Hughes, and Alan MacGibbon as they receive their honorary doctorates. As well, I want to especially welcome the Honourable Keith Ashfield, Minister of State for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, the Honourable Graydon Nicholas, Lieutenant Governor of New Brunswick, and our many special guests, 225th anniversary patrons, alumni, donors, partners, fellow educators, UNB colleagues, and especially friends. Thank you, Frank McKenna and Anne Murray, for honoring your alma mater by hosting tonight's event. We're certainly proud to count you among the UNB family, and I note that you're not only graduates of the university, but that you have each received an honorary degree from UNB. I think all of you here tonight would be interested to know that Walter Charles Kerner, the father of Michael Kerner, for whom this hall is named, also received an honorary degree from UNB in 1964 for his leadership in forestry, business, arts and culture, and of course, philanthropy. UNB's roots are deep and they are far-reaching. The year was 1785. George III reigned over the United Kingdom, and Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette reigned over France. In another 4 years, George Washington would become the first president of the United States of America. And in the woods of New Brunswick, United Empire Loyalists saw it as a priority to see to the education of their fledgling population. That was 1785. And it was only 2 years after the Loyalists landed in St. John. Such was the importance that they attached to the education of their people. The 7 men who petitioned Governor Thomas Carleton may have been physically in the woods, but they were not lost when it came to training and knowledge. 2 were Harvard graduates. Another was the son of the governor of Rhode Island. 1 was formerly the leading merchant in Charleston, South Carolina. There was a doctor, a distinguished soldier, and one who would later become a Supreme Court judge. It certainly was not a motley band of rebels. Through their efforts, through tenacity, purpose, courage, and heart, UNB was born. Today, 225 years later, this university makes a significant difference at home and around the world through its teaching, research, and community engagement. Almost 13,000 students from more than 100 countries study at UNB in Fredericton and in St. John. Today, UNB, as the provincial university, is one of the top law schools and engineering schools in Canada. And UNB was Canada's first engineering school, having started in 1854. UNB technology is used by Google Earth and NASA. UNB professors have and are winning national teaching awards in many faculties. And isn't teaching what a university is all about? UNB students, in turn, are winning national and international prizes for their savvy, especially in marketing and finance, not to mention the arts. UNB is pioneering international caliber research in such diverse fields as the health of our waterways, on artificial limbs, on food webs, on postpartum depression, and on wind energy. UNB is home to Canada's oldest literary magazine, the award-winning Fiddlehead. And, not to be outdone, UNB has reigned as national intercollegiate hockey champions 3 times since 1998. Twice within the past 4 years. And UNB has the most academic all-Canadians for any university its size in Canada. 1/3 of our varsity athletes qualify as academic all-Canadians. So, in the classroom and the lab, on the page, and at center ice, UNB quietly excels. For me, after degrees from 2 other institutions, the University of New Brunswick remains special. UNB and its people gave me essentially my start in life as a young man studying chemical engineering a long time ago with the help of a Beaverbrook scholarship. For this, I'm truly grateful, and I'm proud today to be its Chancellor. I want you to join me, please, as we honor 5 outstanding Canadians and celebrate the University of New Brunswick, our rich history, and our achievements of yesterday, of today, and of tomorrow. And I'd like to think we're just getting started. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dick, for those inspiring words. And also, let me just take a moment to congratulate you on an extraordinary career. As we would say back home, we're really proud of you. You done good. I also want to acknowledge your vision for the Currie Centre. I believe it's going to transform New Brunswick into a national leader, indeed an international leader, in health and wellness research. And that would not have happened without your vision and your money. So thank you, Dick Currie. It's now my pleasure to invite UNB's 18th President and Vice Chancellor, Dr. Eddy Campbell, to the podium. Eddy?
Thank you, Frank. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. As our Chancellor has said, the University of New Brunswick is celebrating the spirit and the commitment of our founders and our builders, the men and women who for the last 225 years helped shape the university into the wonderful world-class institution it is today. And like the University of New Brunswick, our great country has been shaped by the contributions of many outstanding individuals. We are very pleased on the occasion of our 225th anniversary to honor 5 of them today. You know, our university has been granting honorary degrees decades before Canada became a country. And today's honorees will join the ranks of the men and women, including our past honorary degree recipients who have joined us on our platform today, who have been honored by the university for their personal accomplishments and the differences they have made in the lives of others. It is now my great pleasure to invite Alan MacGibbon, Clara Hughes, Purdy Crawford, Carolyn Acker, and Phil Fontaine to the front of the stage. Okay, you will now be presented and admitted to these degrees in Latin, according to the tradition of the university, as honorary degree recipients of the University of New Brunswick. We begin with the presentation by the university orator, Dr. Gordon Mason.
Insignissime praeses, amplissima cancellari, tota universitas, praesenter vobis, Alan MacGibbon, Clara Hughes, Purdy Crawford, Carolinum Acker, et Philippum Fontaine, ut adventantur ad gradum doctoris honoris causa in hac universitate.
Easy for you to say. Ego admitto vos, Alan MacGibbon, Clara Hughes, Purdy Crawford, Carolyn Acker, et Philippum Fontaine, ad gradum doctoris honoris causa in Universitate Novi Brunswicki.
I would now ask our honorees to please be seated until your names are called for individual presentation, and we will begin with Alan MacGibbon, Doctor of Letters. A nationally recognized accounting expert and a corporate and community leader, Alan MacGibbon has brought distinction to his alma mater, the University of New Brunswick. Originally from Newfoundland, Alan MacGibbon graduated from UNB with a business administration degree in 1978. He joined Touche Ross in St. John, gaining extensive auditing experience in private industry before transferring to the firm's Halifax office. In 1989, 1 year before the Touche Ross, Deloitte, Haskins & Sells merger, Alan became audit partner. He was soon drawn into the consulting side of the practice, leading Deloitte and Touche management consultants for the Atlantic region. He held progressively senior management positions, and in 2004 was elected by his peers as managing partner and chief executive of Deloitte Canada. Deloitte is the nation's largest professional services firm, and Alan's demanding role involves leading 7,800 employees and 560 partners in 58 communities across Canada. It's a matter of pride for Alan MacGibbon and Deloitte that the 152-year-old firm has been designated the best employer of new Canadians, characterized as a progressive employer, and most recently won the Maurice Pollock Award in Quebec for promoting ethno-cultural diversity in the workplace. On a personal level, Alan has been deeply committed to supporting the community. He serves on the Cabinet of the United Way of Greater Toronto and on the board of the Learning Partners. At Deloitte, he is particularly proud of the National Impact Day initiative, where everyone across Canada is encouraged to volunteer their time to community organizations. On a professional level, Alan serves as Vice Chair of the Conference Board of Canada and Vice Chair of Canada's CEO of the Year Advisory Board. Alan has provided annual donations and his personal time to support high-growth leaders and entrepreneurs at the Wallace McCain Institute for Business Leadership at UNB. And in 2006, he was designated a Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, the highest honor awarded to Ontario Chartered Accountants. In the words of one of his nominators, Alan MacGibbon is a global strategist and a corporate visionary, and it is with pride that UNB honors him today.
Wow. We were given wonderful instructions. Of course, I missed the last one, but they didn't tell us about the wonderful trumpet as well. Thank you. It's just spectacular. And welcome to New Brunswick. It's nice to have so many people come to New Brunswick tonight. Well, thank you. It's a wonderful and incredible day with family, friends, so many colleagues, so many old friends to see at this event, and thank you to UNB. It's an incredible honor, not anything I would expect, and I just value it so deeply. It's truly memorable, and I thank you. And I thank my fellow recipients tonight. It's a group that I could only be a dream that I could be on the stage with each of them tonight, and it is just great to share that stage and share that honor. Mr. Minister, Your Honor, and distinguished guests, this evening I would like to address to you the subject of responsible business. The last decade has proven to be an economic roller coaster during which we have experienced market exuberance. You remember the dot-com era, or maybe some subprime housing. Financial instability. Remember the financial meltdown on Wall Street. And even countries on the brink of bankruptcy. Think about Greece, Iceland, and Ireland. And we've also seen, and my profession has really seen, a greater regulation. Some of you will remember fondly the U.S. Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Now, on the surface, the ups and downs of the cycles of the past 10 years, they may not seem much different from different eras of time. But what's making these cycles less tolerable and more alarming today is the interconnectedness of the global economy. In today's technologically connected world, an economic downturn can have immediate and catastrophic consequences. And when the unexpected happens, we experience a crisis of confidence. It's the confidence of leaders, confidence of consumers and citizens, confidence of investors, and yes, even the confidence of nations. Now, as we enter the next decade, we're facing more economic uncertainties, and sadly, an even greater distrust of business and political leaders. And in this context, I ask the question, what is really business responsibility? Now, society's expectations of business have shifted, and business must actively foster the social and environmental conditions that make profit generation not only possible, but sustainable. It begins with the need to take a hard look at what we can do to stop the worst extremes of the cycle from reoccurring and challenge our business models to find new ways of doing things differently. So what we really need to see, and I believe we are seeing it, is a rise in the theme of responsible business. It's been proven time and time again that strong values and principled leadership are crucial to generating long-term sustained value. Responsible business is a unified framework. It's about a culture of shared values across an organization. But what does this mean? I believe it means visibly living our shared values and demonstrating integrity and ethical behavior in everything that we do, and that we continually earn trust. Making a clear and consistent investment in our employees. Committing to ensuring that our organizations reflect the diversity of our communities, and giving back to our communities, financially and with our time. And addressing sustainability and climate change by understanding our own environmental footprint and how to take steps to minimize it. Now, regulation will come, but ultimately responsibility lies within business itself to visibly translate this responsible business framework into a mantra of business leadership. So, will we see a theme of responsible and ethical business emerge? Will the responses of events include more emphasis on values, standards, and responsibility? Will the broader contribution to the green and sustainable agendas emerge in harmony with our economic goals? Will the developments adversely impact entrepreneurship or simply change its shape? And in seeking long-term sustainable success in business, will leaders recognize the necessity of earning and maintaining trust? Well, I believe so, because on this cycle, I believe the revolution will be about responsibility. It's high on business leaders' agenda. The best corporate governance practices expected. Consumers expect it. Today, we see consumers make ethical decisions about where they shop. They want to know where their coffee beans come from, and if the workers who sewed their clothes are adults who make a fair wage. Now, maybe most important are the attitudes, and expectations of our youth. Our future workforce. Our youth of today, I find when we're recruiting, have the most penetrating questions and the highest expectations, particularly in the areas of diversity, sustainability, and giving back to our communities. Now, at my firm, Deloitte, we're shaped by 4 shared values, and these define our partnership in our firm. They're simple: integrity, outstanding value to markets and clients, commitment to each other, and strength from cultural diversity. These values have defined my professional life and those of my colleagues. But to really test those values requires living them day in and day out and putting our values and intents into action. And as we all know, action is what really speaks the loudest. So tomorrow, I won't be wearing my business suit. I won't be wearing this gown. Instead, I'll be wearing jeans and a t-shirt because tomorrow is our Impact Day. And at Deloitte, we'll have over 5,500 people from one end of Canada to the other, and we'll spend the day in the community on volunteer activities. And that represents almost 40,000 hours of painting, cleaning, helping wherever we can. And I would just say, imagine the impact we can have on our communities. This is our desire to put our responsibilities into action. And I'd like to close with the UNB motto, and that's dare to be wise. And as we celebrate the Canadian spirit that has endured at the University of New Brunswick for 225 years, I challenge you to take up the dare and be wise by accepting our responsibility as leaders for our communities, for our business, and for our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. MacGibbon. I now invite Clara Hughes, Doctor of Letters, to step forward. Clara Hughes is one of only 5 people who have won medals in both the Summer and Winter Olympic Games, and is the only person in history ever to have won multiple medals in both. Though she began her athletic career as a speed skater, it was as a cyclist that she first gained national and international recognition. 18 times Canada's national champion and a world champion in 1995, Clara Hughes' first Olympic medals, 2 bronze, were won at the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta. In 2000, she made a comeback in speed skating, qualifying for the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, where she won a bronze in the 5,000-meter race. At the 2006 Winter Olympics in Torino, she took both a silver and a gold medal in speed skating. This year, she topped off these achievements by securing a bronze in speed skating, her 6th Olympic medal, at the Vancouver Games. Fittingly, she was the flag bearer for the 2010 Olympic team and proudly led Canadian athletes into BC Place in Vancouver. An emotional moment, not only for her, but for the millions of Canadians who have watched her career with pride and affection. Since 2006, Clara Hughes has been a supporter of Right to Play, an international organization born of a long tradition of athletes' concern for the world's disadvantaged children. Challenging Canadians to match her donation, she has seen more than $400,000 raised to help children in Canada and the Third World discover themselves through physical participation. Most recently, she donated her Olympic bonus to the Vancouver Take a Hike Foundation, dedicated to introducing youth with addictions to outdoor adventures that build self-esteem and rehabilitation skills. Clara Hughes is quoted as saying, "If you dream and you allow yourself to dream, you can do anything." As an athlete, she has captivated the hearts and dreams of all Canadians, and as a humanitarian, she has inspired others to dream. Clara, the University of New Brunswick is very pleased to honor you this evening.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for this honor to be here tonight amongst this crowd. I'm a jock, so I'm feeling a little bit subconscious here. Self-conscious. See, I should have gone to school. Congratulations to my fellow honorees, and thank you to everybody for supporting this event tonight. 225th anniversary doesn't come around often. It takes a long time. And it took me 6 minutes and 59 seconds in 2006 to win an Olympic gold medal. 6 minutes and 55 seconds in Vancouver 2010 February to win an Olympic bronze medal, and in less than 5 minutes I'm supposed to tackle my subject du jour. I'm not known for my speed or my sprint, but I'm going to do my best tonight. But my subject is the value of sport to a nation, and leading into our Olympics for 4 years, we heard about owning the podium, and there were a lot of questions on government money that was spent supporting athletes to reach their dreams and to hopefully achieve greatness on the Olympic stage for our country, in Canada, as Canada, and for Canada in our home Olympics. So this value, what is the value? Is it something that can be quantified? I don't think it can, Because to me, the value of sport is inspiration. Inspiration that has the potential to change people's lives. And when a person is truly inspired, anything can happen. Any dream is possible. And tonight, I think I can only speak from personal experience, because when I was 16 years old and I saw the Olympics for the first time, and I saw speed skating for the first time, and I connected to this beautiful movement I had never seen, and I learned of the Olympic movement and the mythology of the games, I connected to something for the first time in my life. So as a 16-year-old, I was a delinquent. I had quit school. I was getting into trouble. And when I saw those Olympics, I connected to something that I knew I wanted to be. I knew I was going to be, and it changed my life. It shifted the direction of my life. And in many ways, it saved my life. And that's something I saw on television. 1988, Gaetan Boucher changed everything. I don't even remember who won the race. I do remember Gaetan coming in 9th place, but it didn't matter. What mattered were the images I saw that demonstrated the potential of the human spirit. I found my reason to live for, and my life as an athlete was to commence. A seed was planted, and until last February, I've been on that grueling, most beautiful path, the hero path that athletes get to live in their sporting lives. But I never, ever lost the potential to inspire. I remembered what it was like to be that kid and to have connected to something. And I never forgot it, and I always thought when I was competing how many kids were watching me. Maybe there was a child out there who didn't have a dream or a goal, and maybe they were connecting to what I was so privileged to do in representing my country on that ultimate sporting stage, the Olympics. And in our home Olympics, I don't think it was just Canada who was inspired. I think Canada was inspiring. Something happened in our nation. And to have been an athlete there and been on the receiving end of this incredible source of energy that I will never forget for the rest of my lives, to have seen Canadians be very un-Canadian and pour into our streets across our country and show our true colors. I think we showed a side of ourselves we didn't even know existed. So, that Olympic spirit we exuded, I don't think any of us will ever forget. And since those games, I've had the great opportunity to travel this country from the far north to the east, the west, the south. I have heard stories of Canadians and their Olympic experiences, of watching their favorite moments. I've heard stories of kids who've been involved in sport programs since because they said, "Mom, Dad, I have a dream. I saw the Olympics and I want to do that too. I want to do something." I know that there is value, there is great value in sport, and I hope that me standing here and those accomplishments can show you what that value is, and perhaps it's invaluable. It changes lives, it inspires people, it makes us believe we can do anything. That's the beauty of sport. And I've been lucky in my life to have been an athlete, but more than anything, I've been very, very privileged to represent Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hughes. And next we honor Purdy Crawford, Doctor of Laws. Purdy, as he is known quite simply to so many across the country, has distinguished himself as lawyer, businessman, and philanthropist. A maritimer, educated at Mount Allison University, Dalhousie Law School, and Harvard, Purdy began his professional life as a lawyer with Osler, Hoskin and Harcourt. He had achieved senior partner in the firm when he left in 1985 to embark on a second career as an executive with various Canadian companies, most notably Emasco Limited, a multifaceted enterprise that owned the Shoppers Drug Mart chain, among others. A significant feature of his career has been his highly effective service on a variety of regulatory committees, playing a major role in improving securities regulations and dealing with ethical issues for both the securities industry and the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board. Only recently, he chaired the panel to consider a single securities regulator for Canada. Purdy Crawford's third substantial contribution to Canada has been his volunteerism and philanthropy. He is a staunch supporter of higher education, having served Mount Allison as chair of the Board of Regents and as chancellor. A number of academic chairs, centers, and scholarships bear his name in various institutions across the Maritimes, including an innovative award for staff service that he established at Mount A. He is a gifted and effective fundraiser who has lent his talents to educational and social service agencies across Canada. In recognition of his unusual commitment of talent, time, and treasure, he has garnered numerous awards and honors. In 1996, he was made an Officer of the Order of Canada and was promoted to Companion in 2007. Just this year, he was made Honorary Chief Rising Tide of the Member 2 First Nation in Nova Scotia. These days, having returned to Osler's as Council and to Mount A as Chancellor Emeritus, Purdy Crawford spends his time mentoring individuals and groups, and he is much in demand as a speaker on leadership and corporate governance. This is a man whose influence in diverse areas of Canadian life has been significant and will no doubt be long-lasting. We are pleased to include him in our program tonight.
Thank you, Gordon Mason, for those kind words. I hope my wife and family and grandchildren heard them. Let me also thank Chancellor Richard Currie and Vice Chancellor President Eddy Campbell and all the governing bodies at UNB for this honor. I also want to thank our co-hosts, Frank McKenna and Anne Murray. I am pleased to say that Frank is a friend of mine and a person I admire very much. Anne Murray is great. We both come from Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, and we have summer homes near Spring Hill. Now, the difference is that Frank mentioned this. Our summer home is on the Minas Basin, which has the highest tides in the world, which is part of the Bay of Fundy. So Frank is right, you should vote for the Bay of Fundy. I also want to acknowledge how pleased I am to be part of this Canadian Spirit celebration in conjunction with my esteemed fellow graduate. The Chancellor has told you about the UNB and the Loyalists. That it's really quite fantastic. As you know, the revolutionaries George Washington won the Revolutionary War and the Loyalists started leaving or getting kicked out, many of them were deprived of all their assets. They came to many parts of Canada, particularly in New Brunswick, and as the Chancellor has indicated, these were wise and prosperous people who left very good establishments behind them. Some of them could bring some of their assets and others couldn't. They wanted, either they fought and lost in the Revolutionary War, or they wanted to live under the British Crown someplace in the world. I recently found out here about 3 years ago when somebody sent me a Purdy book that there were 3 Purdy brothers fought in the Revolutionary War in Westchester. They lived in Westchester area of New York. And when they got expelled, they went to Nova Scotia. One of them, Gabriel Purdy, is my great-great-great-grandfather. And one of his daughters married a Crawford. So until that time, I had not realized that I had any Loyalist connections. I want to make a few remarks about Canada. To talk about the greatness of Canada in 2 or 3 minutes is quite an effort, so I'm going to try to cover 1 or 2 highlights. This is a positive note. I think we live in one of the greatest countries of the world. With the right leadership in our governments, federal and provincial, we have incredible potential. I don't have to go through this for you, but I do want to say that our culture is such that it's very different, and our stimulus programs have put us off track, but we owe a great tribute, and I've working on this commercial paper file for a couple of years. I realized that what former Prime Minister John Chrétien and former Finance Minister Paul Martin did for this country, with the support of the Canadian people, was really a magnificent achievement. And that, among other many great qualities in Canada, has stood us at the top of the world among countries in terms of this recession. We have a lot of good things going for us, and I'm not going to go through them, except to say that our financial institutions have proved to be the strongest in the world. And I think this is a result of our Canadian culture. The culture is reflected in our regulatory system and in the leadership within our governments and financial institutions. Many of you will remember that our financial institutions were being criticized for not being aggressive enough in expanding around the world. By hindsight, I think it turned out to be the part of wisdom. As you know, we live in a global community. This is inevitable, since we're the greatest trading nation, one of the greatest in the world. It is in our interest to have a broad enough perspective to understand and recognize its value trading for Canada and for the world. We must be proud of Canada, but we also must recognize that there is no room for my country right or wrong. As Joseph Schumpeter said, and recognized the value of creative destruction, and I know this is a complicated issue, but we cannot live in isolation and be prosperous for long. As you know, there were riots in the United Kingdom when the single horse paths were replaced by stagecoaches, and when stagecoaches were replaced by steam locomotives, and when sailing cargo ships were replaced by steam-driven ships. So change is difficult, but it has to come, and I think we're pretty good at dealing with this. Many of these changes we will see as we go forward into the future. The changes that are most important for Canada, as far as I'm concerned, is that we must reduce our dependence on one of the greatest countries in the world, and I think the U.S. will recover, but nevertheless we have to develop trade agreements with many other countries, and we must end the restrictions on trade among the provinces, and we must attract more immigrants. There are many more things that need to be done in Canada from the point of view of public policy. I am only suggesting that relative to other countries, we compare well, but we need to do much more. Let me close by outlining why I'm hopeful for our tomorrows. Our dear friends in the United States would like things to be better. They would like their children to have improved life chances at birth. They would like their wives or daughters to have the same odds of surviving maternity as women in other advanced countries. They would appreciate full medical coverage at lower cost, longer life expectancy, better public services, and less crime. When told these things are available in other countries such as Canada, but that they come with higher taxes and a more interventionist state, many of the same Americans respond, but this is socialism. We do not want state interference, and above all, we do not want to pay more taxes. I say with some pride that we in Canada are prepared to accept higher taxes where necessary, and what is called socialism or an interventionist state, we're prepared to accept for the greatest good of all our citizens. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We've just had three magnificent speeches. Alan talking about corporate responsibility, and it couldn't be more timely. Looking at the crowd, I think a lot of you were like me and listening to Clara. I had a tear in my eye just listening to her, the patriotism and the love of country of this outstanding young woman. And what can you say about Purdy Crawford? You know, if the Maritimes really has a mafia, and I think they do, he's our godfather. No doubt about that. Must be pretty nice to be one of those people like Madonna and Cher and Bono that you just say the name Purdy and everybody knows who you are. Anyways, pretty special, all three of these people. Anne?
Frank and I realize that not all of you here, perhaps not all of you here this evening, know the University of New Brunswick as well as we do. Before we recognize our final two honorees, we'd like to premiere a very special video made just for this occasion. I confess that I've had a sneak peek, and I'll tell you, it made me feel very proud to be part of this institution. Enjoy.
The University of New Brunswick was founded by United Empire Loyalists. In 1785, they petitioned the Governor of New Brunswick for an institution of higher learning. Their determination, their drive to create, and their commitment to the highest of standards are a powerful legacy. On that foundation, we've built an extraordinary place. We are a community of more than 12,500 students from 100 countries studying at 2 campuses and at programs around the world. We are a center of excellence, attracting millions in research funding and some of the world's finest minds. We are a powerhouse, known for our important work in law, marine biology, nursing, and engineering, for our award-winning faculty, and for our awesome skill at center ice. We've been quietly changing the world for 225 years, and we've got a story to tell.
The people at UNB were some of the most important people in our lives. I'm Ann Smith. I'm the mother of twin daughters that were born in 1981. Suzanne, one of the twins, was born with an amputation of the left hand. We saw 7 different doctors in Vancouver, and there was no help for us, no options, no information. What we did find out, though, was that UNB in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and Sweden were the 2 preeminent places in the world that were doing research on prosthesis. We packed up, just like the Beverly Hillbillies, brought everybody, and came home to get the arm for Suzanne.
We really are a pioneer in this field. Dr. Bob Scott more or less invented this line of research in the mid-60s, the idea of harnessing electricity from your body to control an artificial limb, and we really are at the forefront of research in the world.
My daughter's life wouldn't have been what it is had it not been for UNB. The very first hand that she had, cupped her elbow and had a big long battery cord, and it clipped in at the back, and you had to pull it on with pantyhose, and now her battery is built in. There's no taking batteries out.
We're now developing a new UNB hand. It's going to be lighter, it's going to be less expensive, and it's going to be more lifelike than any other hand that's out there right now.
These people had all the answers. They were very, very generous with their time and their hugs, and they're still answering the questions for her and helping her out.
We forget sometimes how cool it is we do what we do until we have to explain it to somebody and they go, yeah, I mean, wow, we really are making a difference.
Our daughter went from being a one-handed person that would have had extremely limited choices to a two-handed person that can do absolutely anything and does not hesitate to do so. But these people, they changed her life. They really did, so ours too.
UNB is leading in terms of this new type of aquaculture. The rest of the world is watching what we are doing. I am Thierry Chopin. I am a professor of marine biology at the University of New Brunswick in St. John. And I work on what we call integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, or in short, IMTA. IMTA, that's when you combine fish that will be fed but will also release some waste with seaweed and shellfish that will use these nutrients. So you combine the 3 types of aquaculture and you balance the ecosystem. Combining these 3 species allowed you to have a more environmentally sustainable system, but also a more diversified system because you have now 3 crops. So economically also, it's very interesting.
What IMTA does is it gives us yet another tool to make sure we're minimizing our impact on our environment. In fact, we now have customers that are actually looking for our IMTA products.
It's up to us to improve aquaculture practices. And we are in a very good position in New Brunswick to make that change and to make a change that will also be useful for the rest of the world.
When I did my tour of UNB, I knew I wanted to come here. I am from a low to middle income family, and the financial issues were always kind of in the back of my mind, in the pit of my stomach. But when I opened the letter that day and found out that I received the Beaverbrook Scholars Award, it was the most exciting moment in my life.
When I open an application like Christina's, definitely a smile comes across my face, and I think, oh, this is awesome. I mean, not only did she meet the requirements, she has excelled. Students like Christina help UNB raise to a higher level.
UNB is a world-class facility, but it feels like one big family, and it just made it that much easier to get here.
It's hard to describe because I can see the sparkling eyes when they come in here, and they're going to take on the problems of the world and make the world a better place. And my role is to help them do that, so it doesn't get any better than that.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next honoree, Carolyn Acker, Doctor of Science. Carolyn Ann Acker is one of those rare individuals who has been able to turn ideals into action and action into results. A nurse and health administrator by education, Carolyn Acker devoted her career to community health. She worked extensively with the St. Elizabeth Visiting Nurses Association of Ontario before becoming executive director of the Regent Park Community Health Centre in Toronto in 1992. The Regent Park Health Centre offers a range of medical treatments, social services, education and training to approximately 26,000 disadvantaged or homeless people annually. As executive director, Carolyn Acker not only managed operations, but also demonstrated strategic leadership. With both private and public funding, she and her colleagues conceived and championed the Pathways to Education initiative, a program that worked with at-risk youth to help them complete their high school education and move on to post-secondary education. Thanks to the Regent Park program, a high school dropout rate of 56% was lowered to 10%, and attendance in post-secondary institutions rose from 20 to 80%. In 2006, Carolyn Acker created the Pathways to Education Foundation, aimed at replicating the Regent Park community model at other Canadian sites. Through her fundraising prowess and knowledge transfer experience, she has helped initiate pathways in 2 more Toronto communities, as well as 5 other Canadian cities, with several more in the process of developing programs. A frequent speaker on the importance of mentoring and improving the educational success of marginalized youth, Carolyn Acker has also served on several hospital boards. She has won awards for being a woman on the move, for urban leadership, and for being one of the 32 most inspiring Canadian women of Italian origin. In a year when UNB is celebrating 225 years of people who have made a difference in Canada, it is fitting that it honors the vision of Carolyn Acker.
Congratulations, University of New Brunswick, on your 225th year celebration. It's marvelous. And I am seated with people who demonstrate the true Canadian spirit, and I'm honored to be part of this group. Congratulations to you. Mr. Minister, Your Honor, Mr. Chancellor, members of the Board of Governors, Mr. President, fellow honorees, and ladies and gentlemen. I want to express my gratitude to the University of New Brunswick. I can't tell you how astonished and honored I was to receive Dr. Campbell's call informing me of the university's decision to confer this honor on me. I'd also like to thank my husband, David Kinnear, my colleague in creating Pathways to Education, Norman Rowan, my chairman, Samuel Dubach, and my family, my mother and father, for instilling in me a deep commitment to social justice, and my friends for their continued love and support and for putting up with me. Now, the Canadian Council on Learning tells us that by 2013, up to 70% of all new jobs, all jobs, will require post-secondary education. To get into post-secondary, you need to graduate from high school. The high school dropout rate for the wealthiest in society is about 6 to 11%. But youth in Canada's lowest income communities are dropping out of high schools at outrageous rates in excess of 50%, and in some cases over 60%. Now, Canada's future depends upon us finding a way to fix this problem. The Pathways to Education program has had some important success in solving this seemingly intractable problem. I was the executive director of the Regent Park Community Health Centre, which is in a very low-income community right here in Toronto. Along with Norman Rowan, we founded the Pathways to Education program. We were working very hard to break the cycle of poverty and implement the health center's audacious vision. Our dream was that the young people growing up in the community would be the future doctors, nurses, social workers, community development workers, and administrators of the center. In 2000, the year we began to research what would become Pathways to Education, there were 9 murders in that community, and there was a palpable sense of despair. The parents in the community of all cultures feared for their children's safety and feared for their children's future. Yet they wanted the same thing for their kids as middle-class parents. And they knew what our research would find out, that we had a serious problem with young people not finishing high school. And you've heard that our research uncovered the dropout rate of 56%, which was fully twice the City of Toronto average. And for the children of single parents and immigrants, it was over 70%. So after listening to the parents and the young people themselves, we used an action research model to do this. We learned that the barriers to success weren't things that could be dealt with by the schools. The Pathways program was designed to overcome these community-based risk factors, the most serious of which are poverty, lack of academic and social support, and a culture of failure. Based in the community, the program provides 4 integrated supports over 4 years of secondary school: academic support through volunteer tutors, social support through mentoring in groups for grades 9 and 10, and career mentoring for grades 11 and 12, and our corporate partners help us here. We offer financial support that the students must earn through school attendance and a $4,000 scholarship as a hand-up to post-secondary. And each student has a counselor advocate who's a bridge between the parents, the community, and the school, and ensures that the student stays on track. Students, together with their parents, sign agreements to participate, and each year, over 90% of the geographically eligible students and their parents sign up. You've heard what we did with the dropout rate. We went from 56% this year, it's 12%. And post-secondary attendance from 20 to over 80%. And now we've replicated the program in 10 low-income communities from Halifax to Winnipeg. And now there are over 3,000 students getting results that mirror the Pathways students in Regent Park. For 50 years, the high school dropout rate in low-income communities has confounded policymakers, educators, and governments, because they believe having better schools will solve this problem, but better schools aren't enough. Critical factors influencing the success of our youth are found in the communities in which they live. So it's really, really important for Canada's future that we shift the lens from its singular focus on the school environment, fixing our teachers and changing the curriculum, to a broader focus on the community as a whole. We all have a role to play in closing this achievement gap. The role of government is to support these initiatives, because government alone cannot deliver them. Corporations, foundations, not-for-profits, public institutions, individuals have all stepped forward to help. Leveling the playing field for low-income youth is the right thing to do from both a social justice and an economic perspective. The Boston Consulting Group reports that every dollar invested into the Pathways program generates $25 back to society in terms of decreased social cost and an increased tax base. By investing in our most vulnerable youth and the communities from which they come, we're reducing the harmful effects of poverty and unlocking the potential of all our youth. Thank you very much. Canadians have the spirit to overcome this problem. I know I see it every day in my work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Acker. It is now my pleasure to present our final honoree, Phil Fontaine, Doctor of Laws. If some prominent Canadians have first name recognition, others have face recognition, and one such is our final honoree, Phil Fontaine. Born in Manitoba as a member of the Saugeen First Nation, Phil Fontaine's career has been dedicated to improving the lives of his people. A student of the residential school system, he became a youth activist, and by age 28 had been elected chief of his own Saugeen First Nation. Enrolling as a mature student, he earned a degree in political studies from the University of Manitoba. Over the ensuing 28 years, he served in progressively senior positions at the provincial and federal levels, culminating in an unprecedented 9 years as National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. Results have characterized his work. As chief of his own community, he established the first Indian-controlled education system and the first on-reserve alcohol and addiction treatment center in the country. As Grand Chief in Manitoba, he negotiated the first comprehensive self-government plan, as well as employment equity agreements leading to thousands of job opportunities for First Nations citizens. As National Chief, one of his key accomplishments was the successful resolution of claims arising from the 150-year-old residential school tragedy. In addition to monetary compensation, his efforts led to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which held its first meetings in Winnipeg earlier this year, and to historic apologies from the Government of Canada and the Roman Catholic Church. Those who've worked with Phil Fontaine attribute much of his success to his cooperative approach to negotiations. He has reacted to racism and injustice not with confrontation, but with a deliberate, firm, and positive approach. One that, in the words of former Minister of Indian and Northern Affairs Andy Scott, was spiritually traditional but practically modern. Recognizing that old wrongs must be addressed, but also that economic development and education are keys to success, he has provided a brighter future for his people and indeed for all Canadians. Chief Fontaine has been recognized with the Order of Manitoba and several honorary degrees. Tonight, UNB is pleased to add another.
The Calvary is not going to show up tonight. I've been assured of that. First of all, I want to acknowledge with deepest appreciation the Mississaugas of New Credit, whose traditional territory we are gathered here this evening. So I thank them on your behalf. Chancellor, President Campbell, Your Honour, Honourable Minister, co-hosts, Mr. McKenna, Anne Murray. In honouring me with this degree, you honour others as well. First Nations women, men, and children whose names are absent from the history books, but whose courage and grace helped to bring me to where I am today. I remember them and honour them. Tonight, my friends, on this wonderful celebration of the University of New Brunswick's 225-year existence, my topic is about reconciliation between Canada and the First Peoples of this country. It has been a little more than 2 years since the Prime Minister rose in the House of Commons to apologize to the Aboriginal people of Canada for the tragedy we call the residential school experience. The Prime Minister acknowledged the terrible damage caused by the 150-year assimilation project, which took thousands of First Nation children from their families and placed them in Indian residential schools. He acknowledged that families and communities were fractured and subsequent generations were profoundly impacted. He said Canada was deeply sorry. To the millions of Canadians who witnessed the apology, there was a sense that the nation had reached a transformative moment, a moment when its conscience had been stirred. But this moment in time, while a great achievement, was not reconciliation. It was just the first step. What we need to do now is to build on the apology to create a national vision and a roadmap to help us achieve reconciliation. We also need an answer to the question, what is reconciliation, and when will we know we have achieved it? Reconciliation is an ongoing process and relationship, yet there is an ultimate destination to which reconciliation aspires. It is for Indigenous peoples to rise out of their chronic disadvantage and state of despair to a state of social, cultural, economic, and spiritual well-being, while retaining our cultural distinctness. This will not happen overnight. It is a multi-generational commitment, which must have a process and set of values to guide it. The fundamental humility inherent in sincere reconciliation provides a new way for us to talk and think about our future as Canadians. It urges us to think we are not always right and to sometimes change our minds. If we truly want reconciliation, we must test our own ideals and visions against the realities of common life. We must be open to the possibility that old ideals may be discarded or replaced by new ideals. It must also be understood that reconciliation is about the future and the past. We cannot brush aside the injustices that have been done or ignore the open wounds or the aching spirits in our midst. We must understand that the harms of the residential school legacy, especially the intergenerational harms, will take years, perhaps even decades to heal. In preparing for this address, I came across the second inaugural speech of Abraham Lincoln. I was interested in what he had to say on this occasion, because his second inauguration occurred just as the American Civil War was ending. The country was deeply divided and hurting badly. His words have been immortalized for their proclamation of an enduring promise of reconciliation. He said, "With malice toward none, with charity for all. Let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to do all which may achieve a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." Our elders embrace the same sentiment as Lincoln did. They teach us that we can build up or we can tear down. We can reach out with a generosity of spirit, or we can seek solace from hatred and revenge. All of us have to make that choice individually, but it is clear what the right choice is. The reconciliation challenge will require much more than words. It will require a closing of some serious gaps. For one, the health and well-being gap that continues to exist between Aboriginal people and the rest of the country. But to close the health and well-being gap, we first need to close the gap in our imaginations. Non-Aboriginal people need to imagine things you have never imagined before. Things like spending quality time in First Nation communities. Things like enjoying a powwow as you would a hockey game. Things like insisting to your political representatives that treaties must be honored and implemented. And what about imagining your children learning to speak Cree or Ojibwe at school? What's wrong with that? Think about what would happen to biased and stereotypical attitudes if Native studies were compulsory in all school curricula up to the post-secondary level. A third gap that must narrow is the gap in our understanding of our national identity. I look forward to the day when Canada affirms that our country was built upon three. I say three, I underline three, not two founding nations: the Indigenous peoples, the French, and the British. Only when Canada and Canadians understand our true heritage will we recognize that this continent was possessed of an ancient civilization, and still is. As long as Aboriginal peoples feel like aliens in their own land, reconciliation will not occur, and Canada will have an increasingly difficult time suggesting that it is one of the great countries of the world. We need to rekindle the flame of reconciliation that burned so brightly 2 years ago. We need to create a Canada where discrimination and racism would be a thing of the past, where land claims would be settled fairly and justly, where treaties would be honored, and where our children could grow up strong in body, mind, and spirit, secure in the knowledge that they will enjoy equality with all Canadian children. This is the ultimate goal of reconciliation. Perhaps 2010 can be the year such revisioning begins. Perhaps the University of New Brunswick will produce the visionaries. If your distinguished alumni are any indication, the courage, intellect, talent, tenacity, generosity, and leadership will be there to contribute to the reconciliation required for the making of the nation we deserve to have. Congratulations to the great University of New Brunswick on your 225th anniversary. And Kathleen Mahoney, my partner, and I thank you ever so much. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief Fontaine. It's my pleasure to invite the Honourable Graydon Nicholas, Lieutenant Governor of New Brunswick, to thank our honorees. Mr. Nicholas is also a UNB alumnus. When he graduated from UNB in 1971, he became the first Aboriginal person to receive a law degree in Atlantic Canada. Since then, his distinguished record of leadership includes more than 18 years of service as a New Brunswick Provincial Court Judge. Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Murray. Mr. Currie, Mr. President, honored guests, distinguished recipients, before I go into my full comments, I want to say that I went to university with Ms. Murray's brother, Stuart, at the same place where Mr. McKenna and I went to university in Nova Scotia. I won't necessarily identify the institution. However, it was 4 good years. I also want to add congratulations and félicitations to the University of New Brunswick. 225 years of excellence, leadership, and innovation. And of course, I met their new president last fall, and it was part of the ceremonies of his installation both in Fredericton as well as in St. John. And I also know the strength of the hockey team in Fredericton, and I enjoy watching all of the games, no matter who their opponent is. And I've also been, of course, a student at the University of New Brunswick on 3 occasions. The first was in the summer of 1968. I attended University of New Brunswick at the time so that I could get a temporary license to teach. Because at the time, if you had your bachelor's degree, you could take 2 courses, summer school, spread over 3 years, and you would get your education degree. But in between, you had temporary license. And it was my hope to be a teacher at that time. However, circumstances prevailed where I was not a teacher. In consolation, I decided to enter the law school at the University of New Brunswick. And to this day, I am indebted to Canada Post. Why? In the summer of 1968, there was a terrible strike in Canada of the postal workers. Nothing moved. There was the day before the fax machines and all the modern mechanisms we have for communication. When I approached the individual in charge of admissions, Professor McAllister, he said, "Young man, if your marks are as good as you say they are, have them sent up by bus from Antigonish, and we'll tell you within a week whether you're accepted or not." So that's how I got into the University of New Brunswick Law School. And it has been a remarkable career for me in this path. That was my second experience. My third experience was when I finished my social work degree in Laurier in 1974, and I returned to New Brunswick. I decided to enroll in courses for my own improvement in business management, accounting, and policy planning. And once again, the instructors that I received were very commendable and very high calibered. So I have tremendous respect for this beautiful institution, University of New Brunswick, because I know that they are ranked very highly nationally in engineering, nursing, business, education, and of course law. And it's also at the University of New Brunswick where you'll find the Mi'kmaq Maliseet Institute, which brings together Aboriginal leadership, Aboriginal interests to try to welcome the First Nations in the Atlantic to come to that university and acquire a first-class education. And so because of that, it's a great privilege for me to be here this evening, not only as Lieutenant Governor of the province of New Brunswick, nor as an alumni of the University of New Brunswick, but more importantly, as a New Brunswicker. And so again, this evening, it's my privilege to be here. Once again, félicitations, Dr. Currie and Dr. Campbell, the President of the University, and all that are gathered here today. I also, of course, have that responsibility of giving some comments about the individuals that we've honored here this evening. Phil, you are truly an inspiration, not only for the First Nations in this country, but also to all Canadians. I would also like to extend congratulations to each of the honorees, 4 of whom I've met for the very first time this evening. Dr. MacGibbon, Dr. Hughes, who I watched while I was recovering and you were at Salt Lake City. And of course also to meet Dr. Crawford, and of course also to meet Dr. Acker. I have listened to your comments here this evening, how collectively you have shared a vision and a wisdom, not only for New Brunswickers, but for all Canadians. And I'm deeply grateful for being present here tonight to be able to recognize, along with others, your valued service to all of us. So once again, congratulations, and thank you very much, and bonsoir.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Well, what a great night it's been, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to talk to you briefly about the power of one. We have seen it on display today, this evening. Each of our honorees is an accomplished individual who has made a mark on the Canadian landscape. And their words this evening have given us much to think about and much to reflect upon. Congratulations to each of you. You serve as an example of the power we all have to make a difference in this world. And now I'd like to introduce to you a young woman who is just beginning her journey. A native of Toronto, Julia Kanata is a 2006 graduate of UNB's Renaissance College, home of Canada's first bachelor's program in leadership studies. A scholarship recipient and class president, Julia began her career as a business analyst on the corporate strategy team at Deloitte. Today, she is an associate on the strategy and business development team at Public Mobile here in Toronto. Julia.
I'm often asked why I chose to go to UNB, and in most cases, it's immediately assumed that I must be from the East Coast. And when I clarify that I'm from Toronto, I can't help but smile. When I was faced with the decision of where I would be pursuing my post-secondary education, I definitely underestimated the impact that this particular decision would have on my life. However, today I can confidently say that accepting my offer to attend UNB was an excellent decision because it was the most significant investment in my future that I could have made. Through my undergrad, the outstanding faculty constantly impressed me with their experience, knowledge, and accomplishments within their respective fields. It was evident that a shared objective among the faculties was to create a supportive learning environment that allowed students to be engaged and challenged on an individual basis. Most importantly, the endless encouragement from professors to discover our own individuality extended my learning beyond the classroom doors and into the local and international community. Renaissance College's experiential approach to learning had me meeting with leaders in the healthcare sector to discuss changes that they would like to see to the provincial healthcare budget, to going out on an international scale and volunteering at hospitals in rural Slovenia. One of UNB's most unique attributes is that it offers a diverse atmosphere. Yet, despite being so diverse, the school maintains a close-knit community. As they say, big enough to offer a variety of programs, yet small enough to be a place where people know your name. It's an environment that promotes mentorship and allows students to pursue their interests to become leaders, innovators, and volunteers. During my second and third year, I was given the opportunity to be involved in hosting public forums for Next New Brunswick, a public outreach initiative that explored New Brunswick's current and future challenges economically, culturally, socially, and demographically. This is just one example of the type of opportunities that UNB offers that encourages students to bring out positive change, to get involved, to be global citizens, and to make a difference. The friends I made at UNB pushed me to pursue my goals, reminded me that nothing is beyond my reach, and most importantly, inspired me to make a difference in my community. As the grad class president, they were the ones that convinced me to create and raise funds for Think Access, a project aimed towards making the Fredericton campus accessible to anyone. Today, these friends are the best ones I could have. They're definitely still at the top of my speed dial list. After graduation, I joined Deloitte Consulting. It was the perfect way for me to build on my functional skill set, allowing me to gain exposure to a variety of industries, functions, and cultures. Actually, Alan, I have fond memories of Impact Day, painting, donating, sorting through clothes, and I have just fond memories doing that with my coworkers, and I just absolutely believe it's a great initiative. My work as a consultant, combined with my experience at UNB, is where I developed my desire to join a startup. I was given the opportunity just over a year ago to work on the strategy team at Public Mobile. However, this isn't just any startup business. Public Mobile is a company that is making a difference in Canada. We are providing low-cost, unlimited cell phone service to millions of Canadians who cannot afford to pay the high rates of other cell phone companies. When you look at OECD countries, Canada ranks the third lowest in wireless penetration. Something needed to change in telecom, and Public Mobile is here to make that happen. We are helping connect Canadians with each other. UNB is a phenomenal school, and it's situated in an absolutely beautiful province. From the outstanding faculty to the amazing opportunities they offer their students, my experience there has shaped the way I approach things in life. It's made me the person I am today and inspired me to want to make a difference. There's not much else I can say. I'm a proud graduate of UNB. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. I would like to say that I hope that UNB becomes a magnet for students such as yourself. It's a real pleasure to have students like you at our university. Ladies and gentlemen, I've spent my adult life working in higher education alongside some of the finest minds in Canada at some of the country's finest universities. The University of New Brunswick is no exception. I was welcomed into this institution's diverse and dynamic family last year in September of 2009. Not only did I join a community of fine thinkers, of doers, and contributors, I joined a community with a deep commitment to all things UNB. Its 225-year history, its achievement in teaching, its caring for its students, its research, its relevance to the people beyond the gates of our campus, throughout New Brunswick and around the world. I believe there are 4 virtues that any institution, and indeed any individual, needs to be successful. You need to have a purpose, and you need to pursue that purpose with a great passion. You have to be persistent, because there will be obstacles. And you must always be trying to accomplish great things in which you can take pride. These are the values that I have discovered in the University of New Brunswick, and I've never experienced anything quite like it before. I'd like to tell you a brief anecdote about one of our students, Ryan Brideau, who's the recipient of a Currie scholarship. You can watch the video for yourself if you go to our website and click on the donors button. In that video, you will hear Ryan talking about a conversation that he had with our Chancellor, Dick Currie, in which he asked the Chancellor how he could repay him for the support that he had received from Richard Currie, the support that allowed Ryan to come to the University of New Brunswick. And what Dick said to Ryan was, "You can repay me best if you reach that position in life where you can do for someone who comes behind you what I have done for you. That will be repayment enough." That speaks to me at a very deep level about the commitment that the people associated with the university have to it. The power of one is a theme that runs throughout UNB's history. In 1785, for example, one Lois Payne spurred her husband William to lead a petition calling for the creation of an Academy of Arts and Science in New Brunswick. And as Dick mentioned to you earlier, just 2 years after establishing their presence in New Brunswick. At a time when thoughts of food and shelter and harsh winters were foremost, so too higher education was believed to be essential to survival. Thomas Carleton Then the Governor of New Brunswick accepted this petition and secured the necessary support for the creation of the Academy. Sir Howard Douglas, New Brunswick Lieutenant Governor in the early 1800s, persuaded the British government to grant us a royal charter and to provide half the funding for the construction of what is now the oldest university building in Canada still in use, and yes, it's where my office is. Some of you clearly know about university deferred maintenance program problems. In more recent years, we had people like Lord Beaverbrook continuing this kind of tradition with fervor, establishing scholarships that transform students' lives, building buildings, giving the gift of books, advocacy, time, and energy. Today, people like our Chancellor Dick Currie are doing exactly the same, continuing to build our university and creating opportunities for our students, faculty, staff, alumni, and our communities. The work continues in earnest. We are in the midst of developing a strategic plan that will lay the foundation for our next 225 years. We are building upon a tradition of innovation and of excellence, and we are doing our level best to develop entrepreneurial, creative thinkers who will make their mark on the world. From our humble beginnings has sprung a bustling, national and internationally renowned university. We have students in Fredericton and St. John, and less well known, we have students in Toronto, Trinidad and Tobago, Dubai, Egypt, and Singapore. You may not know, for example, that in partnership with Humber College here in Etobicoke, we have some 800 students doing the UNB nursing degree. It's one of the largest nursing programs in Ontario. We're very proud of that. Ranked as one of the best comprehensive universities in Canada, UNB, as you have heard, is home to one of the finest law schools in the country and one of the top engineering schools in North America. We are small enough to provide personal attention and large enough to undertake world-leading research in the sciences, the arts, and the humanities. And yes, we are pretty good at hockey. And when just to mention this hockey team that's received a number of mentions, it must be Canada we're in. Just this evening, Kathy Waugh, who you met in our video a little bit earlier, is responsible for some of our scholarships. She told me that she had just come from an event yesterday in which we honored 10 All-Canadians of about the 25 players on that hockey team. What she said to me was, not only is it the best hockey team in the country, it's the smartest hockey team in the country. It's just simply a great time to be at the University of New Brunswick. I think that Lois and William Payne, Thomas Carleton, Sir Howard Douglas, Lord Beaverbrook, and the thousands of men and women who have played a role in shaping the University of New Brunswick would be honored and proud to know that their individual contributions have together built an enduring legacy, a foundation on which our university can proudly stand and look to the future, secure in the knowledge that we each have the power to change the world. I'd like to ask you to join me in offering a special round of applause for our 5 honorees, and many thanks to our Chancellor Dick Currie. I would also like to offer a special thank you to our 225th anniversary patrons who made tonight's festivities possible. Thank you. And a great big thank you to UNB's Chief Advancement Officer Bob Skillen and his team Sandra Howland, Katie Bowden, and the rest of the advancement team for organizing tonight's events. They are now breathing a big sigh of relief. A thank you to all of you for joining us here this evening to celebrate Canadian Spirit. I hope you'll enjoy the party afterwards in the gallerias outside the hall. And I do want to thank our gifted hosts, Anne Murray and Frank McKenna, and call them up for one last time. I do want to say I admire Frank greatly for the great contributions he has made, not only to New Brunswick, but to Canada. But Frank, you didn't sing at my wedding, and Anne did. Thank you, Bob.
Well, Frank, I'm feeling very proud tonight to be a UNB alumna and a Canadian, for that matter. Aren't you?
I share that. 5 magnificent honorees tonight. It just makes you proud to share the stage with them. It was just absolutely.
Thank you all for coming.
It was just terrific. So this is the point in the evening where we thank all of you. You've come from, many of you from afar, and coming here tonight makes this celebration just really special. So thank you, one and all, and I guess it's time for us to spread our tiny wings and fly away.
Yes,
what do you think of that? Okay, I've been dying to say that. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.